can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to our intro to Buddhism and meditation from the Dharma Bum Temple. Thanks all for being here, sitting with us tonight. We're all in very similar situations these days with what's going on around us, and I think what's on my mind right now that I just want to share and really remind everybody is that regardless of the situation around us, and I repeat this a lot, but there are always things in your life throughout your day to be grateful for and to be happy about and to laugh at and to enjoy. And so I just want to remind everybody that we're in a huge mess right now in the world, but that doesn't mean that we have to be in this miserable mindset all day long. And so I just want to encourage everybody to really each day to try to find things, large or small, that you can enjoy and that you can laugh at and that you can find some sense of just stillness and calm in whatever you're doing. It's really critical right now, and as people begin to go a little stir crazy, stuck at home and stuck inside, and the things on social media that you see that people are inventing and coming up with are, some of them are funny, some of them are, I think, quite ridiculous. Some of them I think are appropriate, some of them are inappropriate, but of course these are all my judgments. But the reality is there's a lot of time that we have on our hands right now that maybe we didn't have before. And I think it's important to just reflect on how we utilize that time and to try to use it in ways that are beneficial to really cultivation of wisdom and compassion. That's what this entire practice is about. When I say this practice, I mean the Buddhist teachings is ultimately to cultivate every day wisdom and compassion. These are the two wings to the Buddhist teachings. And so as you find yourself throughout your day doing things, whatever they may be, ask yourself, how wise is this and how compassionate is this? How wise is this towards self and others, and how compassionate is this towards self and others? And I think it's a good way to just kind of check in with yourself on how you're spending your time. So with that being said, we'll start with meditation practice. For those of you who might be new, I know a lot of you might be joining us for the first time with the Dharma Bum Temple. Some of you may be meditating for the first time ever. So a few things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working? Is it not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room you're in, sounds outside. Wherever you're at right now, there's most likely going to be sounds. And when you hear these sounds, just recognize them as things that are happening around you and try to bring your attention and focus back to sensation of breath. I'll say things periodically, and what I say is not so important other than just as a reminder to come back to the present moment. If you are new to meditation, it's important to understand that your mind will not shut off and you will not stop thinking. The purpose of meditation is not to stop thinking, it's to recognize your thinking and lost and come back to present moment. And lastly, don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself if it's working, if it's not working, or if you're doing it right, or if you're doing it wrong. We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe, and that's it. Posture. If you have a cushion, if you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever is comfortable for you. If you're on a chair or however you're sitting, just again, try to keep your posture upright. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be knees or lap again. I'll suggest closing the eyes if that's comfortable for you. If not, slightly open is fine. Mouth will be open or closed. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything, but just sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding your attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought, returning attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from your practice. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet. Wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. we react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. The practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. For most of us, the way we respond to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap, where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a pretty hectic, stressed out mess right now, meditation doesn't fix that. It makes you become aware of why your mind is driving you crazy all day long. And then you begin to make changes throughout your day so you feel a little more at ease, a little more settled. Sitting and breathing is just sitting and breathing. And that's it. That's the practice. We spend so much time trying to fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us. Once we stop that and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's not easy. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And then learning to be kind to yourself and everybody around you. So think about how you feel right now. Pay attention to how different it may or may not be to how you felt an hour ago or earlier in the day. The same mind that sits with you now is the same mind that's with you when you're anxious or stressed. So I think I'd rather stop there, and I always prefer to just respond to questions, and I'd like to maybe leave a little more time tonight than normal for questions. So instead of me going off on some tangent in some direction, I'd rather address what's on your mind and use that to go off on some tangent in some direction. So if you're new to joining us on YouTube, there's welcome, first of all. Then on the right-hand side of the screen, there'll be a little chat box there. You can type your question in, and Travis here will read your question, and then I will do my best to respond in hopefully a way that is beneficial for you or anyone else that might be with us. So again, we'll take some time now just to open up to questions on meditation, Buddhist practice, or any challenges you're having these days or struggles, something that might be a little new to you. A lot of us are facing difficulties that maybe we've never had to deal with before. So we'll just open up for questions at this time. So someone just texted me a question. We're good? Yeah. They asked me, why is it so difficult to sit with myself? Not me, but them. And, it's a good question because sitting with ourselves is what we're with all day long. And when we find ourselves in situations in our lives where we're maybe doing less, what we're actually waking up to is more of who we are. Meaning we're not so preoccupied with things all day long or our routines. I mean, for the most part, majority of people in this world, your routines have been completely shattered. Whatever routine you had maybe 2 months ago, or even maybe a month ago for some people, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, your routines are drastically shattered. And I actually find this practice to be incredibly beneficial for us, because the routine that you were in wasn't necessarily good or bad or right or wrong, but most of us have been locked in patterns for a very long time. Patterns of behavior, patterns of activities, patterns of ways of thinking, and that's been completely disrupted. And so now you're actually being forced to potentially spend more time thinking like, or feeling like you have nothing to do. And, once in a while, feeling like you have nothing to do is nice, especially if you're a busy person. But if you're a busy person and all of a sudden you now feel like you have a lot of time with nothing to do, that's going to suck. And what that leaves you with is this idea of, oh no, now I'm with me. I have to be with just me. But like I started saying, you're always with just you. You're just not paying attention to you. And I get it, Buddhist teachings, you, the self, it's all an illusion. That's there, but I'm not talking about that right now. I mean, I am, but I'm not. The you that's there is the you that you have to get to know. So the anger or the greed or the kindness or the love or whatever you're sitting with throughout your day, pay attention to that. That's very important. One of the great Buddhist teachings from Zen Master Dogen, he would say, you must get to know the self before you can get rid of the self. And so really the heart of Buddhist teaching is talking about there is no self and I'm just an illusion and I'm very different from how I perceive myself to be. All of that, yes, those are really core fundamental teachings. But I must recognize the self that I have created and the identity I have created. What is that self? What is that story about myself that I'm clinging to? What is the story about my dreams that I'm clinging to? What is the story about my past that I'm clinging to? What is my story about the future that I'm clinging to? All these attachments to views are important to begin to recognize. So when one asks, why is it so difficult to sit with myself? That's a great question, and something I really suggest you explore. What is it about you that's so difficult to sit with? I mean, are you really that bad of a person? I don't think so. So why is it so hard to sit with yourself? What do you not like when you sit with yourself? What do you like when you sit with yourself? Begin to explore these things. And the idea is with time and with practice, with patience, with integrating these teachings into your lives, then maybe you'll be a little more comfortable in time sitting with yourself. But for one who is not comfortable with themselves, that's a great place to start. Kind of pretending that, I call it the namaste face, when we all just join palms and we smile and we put on these happy faces and we say namaste and we pretend in these little spiritual worlds that everything's great. It's a facade. It's nonsense. Everything's a mess. Our minds are a mess. The world is a mess. Let's be real with that. And then work from that place. So, and if your mind is not a mess, you would probably not be sitting here right now. So, other thoughts, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with?
Bill asked, how do we maintain peace in the chaos when we're not meditating?
How do we maintain peace when we're not meditating, like peace within the chaos when we're not meditating? So I think the first thing to understand is that the Buddha teachings have really helped me understand that we create boxes and constructs and stories, kind of like I was just talking about, but specifically with meditation. And we think there's my life, and then there's my time for meditation. So we may think that we had our whole day today. We woke up, we did whatever we did all day long, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to do my meditation now. And we create this story in our head that our meditation is different from everything else we did. Ultimately, the practice, and I'm not saying we're there, but the practice is to recognize that everything you did all day long today, that was your meditation practice as well. That time is no different than this time. We have physical form, we have consciousness in this moment, in what we just called a meditation. All day long, whatever you did today, Bill, you had your physical form and your consciousness in that moment. So there's no difference between the two moments or two periods of time. The difference is what was your level of concentration and focus throughout your entire day. If meditation is a concentration and focus on the present moment, which for me as a practitioner, that's how I have learned meditation practice, is that it is to bring me to this moment. That everything that's happened in the past is gone. Whatever's going to happen in the future, it's not here. I don't know what's happening 5 minutes from now. I don't know what's happening 5 seconds from now. But I know that right now in this moment, I am here. And then again, in this moment, I am here. And then again, in this moment, I am here. And every moment, I'm just here. And in this moment, you can be calm and at peace. Now, if you begin to apply that to everything you did all day long, you'll see a big difference in how you feel during the day. So try not to separate life from meditation and meditation from life. The Buddha said sitting, standing, walking, lying down. These are all forms of a meditative practice. And to me, they're metaphors, meaning whatever we're doing all day long, that is our meditation. But yes, if you run around all day long, crazy, stressed out, anxious, and then you use meditation as a tool to crash and be calm, then you're going to be how you are now, which is feeling this huge difference. And that's why at the end of meditation, I always say, and I've been saying the same thing for like 12 years, pay attention to how you feel now and compare it to how you felt earlier in the day. Notice the difference. And what we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. What I mean by that is how you feel now after what we call the meditation ultimately shouldn't be any different than how you felt all day long. And that's why I asked that question, for you to recognize, wow, I'm a mess all day long and I'm calm after meditation. The problem is not the meditation. The problem is, why are you a mess all day long? And you're a mess all day long because you're not focused on the present moment. So hopefully you can pull something out of that and again, begin to close that gap to where all day long, this is just how you are. Other questions?
Murray says requesting the snail story.
The snail story. Yes, the snail story. So when I was a kid, 8, 10, 12, 14 years old, I used to step on snails a lot. And, it would rain and all the snails come out. And I still remember my house, kind of the walkway going up to the front door, and you had grass on each side, and then there's this, concrete walkway. And the snails would come out, and I would step on snails. I don't know why. I just liked stepping on snails. And as a kid, I never really thought anything of it. So fast forward years later, and I started going in 2003 to the Buddhist temple here in San Diego. And I don't know, a year or two into it, I came across some teaching or read some book. I still don't even remember what triggered this thought, but I came across some moment in time where all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I used to kill so many snails when I was a kid. And I had this overwhelming, all kinds of emotions, guilt, sadness, anger. I was angry that I used to kill so many snails. I just had all these emotions about me being a snail murderer, right? And so I went on this save the snail campaign in my own head. I mean, I wasn't making signs and, asking people to save the snails with me, but I became very protective of snails. And so when I would see a snail, I would pick it up, and I would, if it was on the concrete, I would move it back on the grass. Or I would make sure when it was raining, I kind of was very aware that I wasn't stepping on snails. And if I saw it going across the, sidewalk or something like that, I moved it out of the way. So for probably a good, year or two, who knows how long it was, I got on this I was proud of myself. I was I'm saving these snails. Good for you. And, at the time, and I probably never talked about it in this regard because I usually really condense the story a bit, but at the time, I know at the time I also felt because I was, in my mind, saving these snails now, in my mind, I was telling myself that I was actually making up for all the snails that I killed before. Doesn't work that way. And that's a whole nother teaching in its own right. Those snails, they're gone. This snail, maybe I'm helping this snail, that doesn't negate the pain and suffering I caused over here, unfortunately. But I used to think it did in my kind of early Buddhist things. I thought they canceled each other out. Totally separate, but that story for another day. So all of a sudden I'm going through for a while and I'm saving all these snails. And one day I got some other teaching on something in Buddhism and something around wisdom. And all of a sudden it hit me and I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Here I am thinking I'm saving these snails. But what I was doing is I was picking them up and I was moving them on the grass. So first of all, how do I know where the snail was going? Right? In my mind, I'm moving it over here, but how do I know the snail wasn't actually going that way? Right? So maybe I move the snail over here, and in the snail's attempt to go that way, they turn around, they walk back across the sidewalk, and in walking back across the sidewalk, somebody comes and steps on them. So I made their journey even that much further, potentially. The other thing is, I was foolish enough to think, just because I walked on the sidewalk and could see the snails, that if I put them on the grass, they'd be safe. Well, people also walk on the grass. And in fact, when I started to pay attention to this, it's actually easier to see a snail when it's on the sidewalk. So if you're paying attention, there's less likely of a chance that you would step on the sidewalk if you're looking, because you can see them. The point is, I was convinced for a very long time that I knew what was best for the snail by moving the snail and feeling so, look at me, proud of myself, I'm helping the snails. I have no idea where the snails are going or what they're doing. They have their own karma, their own path. And I thought I could control it and manipulate it and fix it. And that was really ignorant. So the ultimate question is, what do I do now? I see snails, I say my omitofos, I wish them well, I send them blessings, and I leave them alone. I don't touch them. They have their journey, I have my journey. I do my best not to harm them, but I'm also not trying to mess with their lives. And, it's a great story that, I appreciate Maurice asking that. I tell it, I don't know, once every couple months, sometimes every couple of weeks, but depending upon the question and the nature of people's questions, which usually has to do with, how do I help people I love, or how do I fix someone, or how do I, take care of someone? Because we often think that what we want is what's best for somebody else, and we often think we know what's best for somebody else. And that's only our perception. And unfortunately, our perceptions are not always correct. So please, when it rains, be mindful of snails. They're fascinating little beings. One of the greatest gifts I ever received was from Nancy. And it's a Nancy Wooten, and it's a hand-sketched. She's an incredible artist. Drawing of a snail. So, hashtag I love snails. Snail stories. Other questions?
Could you speak a little bit about mudras and the benefits of using them in one's meditation?
Yes. Speaking of mudras and the benefits of using them in one's meditation. Have you ever seen this mudra? This is a very powerful mudra. It's called the left hand on top of the right hand mudra. And it will ground me in this moment. There's another incredible mudra called the right hand over the left hand mudra. Another powerful mudra that will ground me in this moment. I made up both of those. I'm not a good storyteller, but I made them up because they're relevant to me right now. Here are my hands. I can feel them here. I can see them here, and they will keep me present, right? Now, mudras, like anything, are tools. Like mantras, things that we recite, they're triggers. And there are very common mudras in Buddhist teachings and throughout yoga and the Hindu world, right? Some of them, for example, are the Dharma Chakra mudra, which is here, and it represents the first turning of the Dharma wheel. It represents the first time the Buddha spoke or taught, and he gave the Four Noble Truths to his first 5 disciples. So the first turning of the Dharma wheel is the Dharma Chakra mudra, right? There's the Jnana mudra, where you have your hands placed here, your thumbs are together, and it's in here, which is how I tend to sit in meditation, right? There is the what's called earth-touching mudra, which is the hand touching the earth, which represents the time that Buddha defeated Mara when sitting under the Bodhi tree for 21 days, and he was challenged by his mind, basically Mara, but in the story, but it was his mind. And when he defeated Mara, he simply touched the earth to show that the earth was his witness. And it's called the earth-touching mudras. There's so many mudras, but I kind of make light of them because for the average person, and my guess is if you're sitting here on a Tuesday night watching me share Buddhist stuff on YouTube, you're an average person, right? They're just hand gestures. And I don't give them any more power than being hand gestures. If your mind gives them lots of power, and by power I mean meaning, then great. But to me, mudras, the Dharma Chakra mudra, which I have great respect for, if I sat here in a Dharma Chakra mudra during meditation, it wouldn't do anything more for me than sitting here like this, because they don't really do anything for me. So when we read stuff about mudras, and we think that if we sit in a certain mudra that it's going to bring us something, I just don't buy it. I really don't. But if it works for you, then by all means, Google mudras, find ones that have meanings, and assign meaning to it, to you, and use it in your practice. But, it's why I talk about at the beginning when I say, what you do with your hands and how you sit with your hands and legs and all that kind of stuff doesn't matter. What matters is where's your mind. That's the real important part. My first master said you could recite the Buddha's name, you could recite the name of Jesus Christ, you could recite Coca-Cola. That's what he used to say. Recite the Buddha, Jesus, or Coca-Cola. That's no disrespect to the Buddha or to Jesus or to Coca-Cola. The point is that all three of those things are things that you can focus on. And if focusing on them helps you stay present and be kind, then great. So if sitting in some mudra helps you be present and be kind, then rock on. Use them all. So those are my thoughts on mudras. The last thing I want to add on the mudras is that, obviously by what I just said, they've never done much for me. So for me as a practitioner who tries to be as honest and genuine and authentic with my practice when I sit here and share with you all, I could make up a bunch of stuff about mudras, but they don't mean anything to me. So I don't want to present it in a way as if it has some grand effect, because for me, they've never done anything. So, but always not intended to disrespect people who use mudras in their practice or mantras in their practice. If they're important to you, then they're important. All right. I mean, I look at a question like that and I'm jumping to a larger topic, or a different topic, but there were 14 questions the Buddha didn't answer from the people. And one of them was, should we believe in gods and goddesses? Again, this is India, 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Christ. And so the belief then was, it was a Hindu way of life, and the belief was in endless goddesses and gods. And so the people wanted to know, as disciples, and everybody asked the Buddha, should we believe in goddesses and gods? And the Buddha said, I'm just a human. I can't tell you to believe in them or not. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. What matters is, how do you live your life? Are you kind and compassionate and generous in your life? And so I look at things like mudras the same way. If they're important to you, they're important. If gods and goddesses are important to you, they are. If they're not, they're not. I'm just not a fan of these kind of blanket answers that say, this is how it should be. And we have enough of that. So hopefully that's helpful. Other questions, thoughts? We got time for about one more, so. Good. Anything else before we close? All right. So with that, we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So a few quick announcements before you all head off. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up the Dharma Bum Temple 14 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice and meditation to local folks. So those of us who lead every night, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those of you who join us. Every night we have different practices going on. Right now, as the temple's doors are closed, which we closed on March 12th, we're still running, I'd say, about 80% or so of our classes. Our schedule is all online now. I do this every Tuesday night. Wednesday night, Alex does the Metta loving kindness practice. Thursday night, Travis does Dharma Bum basics and meditation. And then I do Saturday morning as well. Our recovery community is still running. All those classes are going Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Sunday morning, as well as a new Saturday morning 12-step Zen class is at 10 o'clock. So the recovery classes are all on Zoom. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights are here on YouTube. Our family Sangha is up and running. Our college Sangha is up and running. Our teen group is up and running. We even have Lisa, who's been leading the kids group for the last 9 years. She just recorded her first kids lesson that we just uploaded onto YouTube. So that'll be used for the kids. So we really are trying to resume, and have been for the last really 3 weeks, as much of a normal temple schedule as we can. But we also started this week our morning meditations. So Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, 8 and 8:30, we're sitting in the morning. Those are Zoom as well. So if you're someone who needs kind of like a commitment and you need it on your schedule and you need to say Monday morning, I'm going to show up and sit, then there will be people there sitting with you Monday through Friday, 8 and 8:30. There's silent sits, they're 25 minutes long. There's no teaching, there's no talk, there's no welcome. It's just like showing up at the Dharma Bum Temple. You come in, you sit down, you hit a bell, or someone hits a bell, and then you sit. So the same thing happens now, and that's all on Zoom. Our calendar on the Dharma Bum Temple website, the dharmabums.org, has the schedule, and then there's the Google Calendar there. You open up the event, and that'll give you all the login information. We do need now for Zoom, you have the meeting ID and password is all there as well, just from a kind of extra security measure. The last thing I'll say is this coming Saturday, Liz Lewinson, who we had here teaching about 2 weeks ago, Women, Meditation, and Power, she's going to give a talk Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time titled Buddhism During a Pandemic. So that will be, it'll be an honor to host her as always. That's also on the website of the Facebook group. So please join us for that. Thank you all. I appreciate you being here. If I never see you again, the best Buddhist teaching I ever got was think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds. So good luck with all that. Thank you.